thinking about independence, wondering if after 50 plus 2 years, we're ready for digital natives to lead? Pause. What if they ain't just the future, but they the now? In this Independence 242 special, I sit down with Dale Miles, Gen Z voice, mental justice advocate, and a digital disruptor to ask the questions. Where we at, where we going, and what can catapult the journey. 1 in 5 youths contemplating suicide. Drive-by mass shootings. People with plenty money wanting to be in cabinet. All kind of questions surrounding what our youths are thinking about today. So think about it with intentional thought and consider where we go from here. Let's change the narrative. 242.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative. 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And as you see on the screen, we have this vibrant young man here. One who really is shaping the world in his little space, but is going to soon be so big that he don't know what he can do with all of the influence that he has. welcome, Mr. Miles.
Hello.
How you do? You gotta say a little more than that, man. But so
well, I'm good.
Thanks
for asking.
Yeah. So Dylan Miles is a recent graduated UB, University of the Bahamas, one of the premier institutions in the Bahamas, and he has a lot on his plate, in his mind, that he's thinking about every single day. You can see in the energy, it comes out all over the place. So tell us a little bit about you and your cause.
Thank you for asking. You're right. I don't remember doing any kind of I don't remember doing like a diagnostic screening. So I'm surprised you were able to diagnose me so well just then. I do think about a lot all the time. It's hard to say I have just one cause. Climate change is a big one right now as a young person who hopefully will see, a distant future. Climate change is pretty scary at this moment. We see the heat waves happening and just getting really serious and whatnot. That's it, but it's still one of the causes. I'm also a volunteer with the local reparations committee, the BNRC, Bahamas National Reparations Committee. They're very cool. I support the reparations cause as well. Really, I can go on.
Yeah. So tell the people what's your degrees or your focuses, what you want to be in.
My degrees were, recently the recent graduation is with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology.
Okay.
Specifically the clinical strand. So that's dealing with like mental health care and that type of thing. Before that, it was an associate's degree in architecture, which was still interesting. But I think mental health is where it really becomes something to think about.
Yeah. When I say that you're the architect, I mean that you are a builder, and I say in the social tech, you are now a builder of people. We have priests that do certain things, but you have it in a different forum, and we wish you or pray blessings on all your endeavors that you do. So, but tonight we want to dive into what's happening from your perspective as to what you see the Gen Zs, the digital natives think of our country this week celebrating independence. 50 plus 2 years. My Lord, and I'm still 20. So I don't know how that happened because I born before independence. But So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Well, not a little bit, but a lot about that. And so there's this quote that would be my grandmother would have said to us on a number of occasions, if not too often, particularly when we wanted something. That you ain't got and you ain't gonna got because you can't take care of what you got. So that's a little heavy thing there. And you still there? I can't hear you. What happened to you? What happened to my friends? Okay, I think I got you back. Boom. Somebody drop out. Say something. Let me see if I can hear you.
I was saying that's powerful.
Okay, yeah, good.
The good Dillet.
Yeah. That's my mommy's mommy.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So we say that from this perspective of my generations and above kind of thing, which is, I guess, for 2 generations above you, because you have U, Z's, Y, X's, yeah. Okay, so 2. So, and it's saying to us, my generations and above, is that we ain't gonna got because we can't take care of what we got, meaning what we have now. And so you have your generations coming along, putting your fingerprints on what's happening. And so we will lose what we had or what we have because we ain't taking care of you guys. And so forth. And that's the mindset behind the quote. But when we look at all that, then this would be now a great-great-grandmother, Olga Dillet, as we said. I don't know what apostrophe S is there for. Oh, yeah, her words. What do these words stir up in your personality as a young Bahamian man?
I like the quote. I like it. I could relate to it as a young Bahamian man.
Okay.
You ain't gonna got if you can't take care of what you got. That sounds like that sounds like just something along the lines, if you don't look after your mental health, then I think intersectionality comes into play there, thinking about how mental health overlaps with like your physical health and that kind of thing. And what can you say? As a young Bahamian man, if you can't, I guess, stay sane in this game, then you won't really gain like that.
Yeah. And do you all see it as a game, or do you see it as how do you see it? Let me ask the question that way.
How do I see it? What do you mean by it?
The world around you, but you say playing in the game. So the game that you're speaking of, how do you all see that? Do you see it as a game, or just a coin word, or just like coin as money kind of thing?
Hopefully the same as you see it.
Okay.
It's just real life.
Yeah. Okay. With all its trinkets and what have you. Cool.
Yeah. I would say so.
So do Gen Zs think the ruling generation truly understands what we got as a nation, and are we taking care of it? What do you all think about us?
What do you think about your generation?
And above older people too, who really controlling the government and stuff.
Right. Well, a dense mix of emotions, a very thick soup of emotions.
Wow, pea soup, doughboy in it. A little bit of conch.
I'd try to go for a vegan kind of soup. I just think, get more colors in there, more variety and whatnot.
Yeah.
Maybe some love and hate, we can say.
Okay. So like a B grade then.
I know that from talking with you on previous, on previous episodes, me and the other, our other friends who were on that call, you could speak pretty easily about how older generations have, not done the younger ones justice and blah, 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 that kind of thing. I can say more recently, I guess, I can understand it's not that straightforward, really.
Okay.
Because like the older generations, they did they also did what they can at like our ages and time. So there's
Okay.
some of that, you know.
Yeah. And understand
Especially
that there's different dynamics with different times.
for sure, for sure. Now, to be fair, the question says ruling generations.
Yeah,
A
well, the
little bit
ruling
different.
most of that is above me because there's only a handful
Yeah.
of people in my generation in significant power. Well,
Yeah.
in political power, but in business power, then you have people all over kind of thing because you have this as people as young as the Sabas with plenty of money and entrepreneurial influence, and then you have some of the older settled persons who have a lot of established wealth on Bay Street and around the world, etc. and so
Right.
forth. So it's a blend. Socially, you get different forums, but you get social media is pretty much Gen X and down, other than those who just up there just to say hi, how you doing, what's going on, kind of thing.
You think so?
Yeah, you don't think? I mean, you have the rabble rousers, but most of them only want likes, right? To be seen or heard of or to be well. I mean, the bottom line is to be valued, right? Everybody wants to be valued, and if that's maybe that's part of the challenge that we have in 242 is that people are gravitating to these different spaces that is free and easy because they're not feeling valued in what is to consider traditional spaces, whether it's the church,
Right.
business, civic groups, what have you. And so
Yeah.
they flock to,
Yeah.
to social media to do their thing.
That's interesting to me because I've used social media a lot before, but more recently I don't use social media as much anymore, despite I suppose being still a young man and whatnot. And I would say it's been much better for my mental health personally. So this is
Okay.
to think about social media like that because I don't use it. You know, I don't have a TikTok. I don't have.
Right.
I mean, I used to have one, but I don't have one. For some time now, I haven't, been active on any of that. And it's been, I would say I'm 78% more mentally,
Charged.
I would, maybe not charged, more steady, I guess.
Okay.
It's 78% better, I'd say, for my mental health. So if I were to speak to other, young people, if you want to call them that, I would say I would probably lean towards social media not being like maybe a bit too chaotic, I guess, for its own good.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, young in society would be those who are in the tertiary level type environment from straight out of the high school kind of thing ages, right?
Okay.
The 20s to the 30s, early 30s. And then you have the super youths who would be like in high school, and then you have people like me who still believe they're youthful or youth, but a bit over.
Is there a name
over the brush? Huh?
Is there a name for that type?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you call us. Be
post youth, maybe.
Post youth, I don't know. Some people say old, but I ain't old because I ain't reached that stage.
I wouldn't call you old.
Yeah, when people say Mister. Okay.
Yeah,
get used to that.
That's just to show respect, but you're cool.
But that's what it is. I appreciate that. Thank you. I gotta put that on the shelf. Keep that in there.
Mr.
All right.
Knowles.
Cool. Yeah. So from your perspective, what's the current mental and emotional state of the digital natives generation in the Bahamas? That's predominantly Z's.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So digital native, we're talking Gen Z and around that. I think, what is it? Is there like Gen Y if they're newborn?
No, well, Gen Z is digital native. Gen Y would be more millennial.
But not like tech.
And Gen X's would be people like me up in the 50s and so forth.
Okay. Now, I remember during a class that I think anyone born like since 85 was considered, I can't remember the term, internet baby or web-based or something like that.
Yeah, they have a crossover there that people try to do something different, but the general one that is accepted by most would be the XYZ, and then now they
Okay.
have whatever they call it after
It,
y'all.
and digital native, we're
Yeah.
talking.
Is that C's go down to 13 this now and up to like 25, 6 or something like that.
Okay, so from like 26 to 13, or 13 to
Yeah.
26, we're talking.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And so when we had these recent stories in the paper and what have you, and the report that came out about how people, and I think it started from COVID, after COVID, where people were saying people were stressed out and the like,
Yeah.
what have you.
That was definitely really bad for youth. I can say that. Yes, really big setback in terms of like development, for sure.
And
Like,
have we
social-
responded well to it as a country in terms of helping? From your perspective, from what you hear on this, the little chit chats that y'all.
I mean, honestly, like this country isn't very good at like handling most things. I guess, once the lockdown like regulations were lifted, I guess, then naturally people, went back to their like natural places, like business as usual and whatnot.
Right.
It's just do we really generally have, the best, healthiest ways of responding to that kind of like,
Right.
I don't even know what else to call it, like catastrophe that happens.
Yeah.
Like Dorian and then COVID right after. Yeah, with the talk of social media, this is interesting because that generation, this digital native, like 13 something funny about growing up for me is that I thought once I hit 25, I would be like full grown adult. I heard 25 is when the brain like theoretically stops
Stop development. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought when I got to that point, I'd reach full maturity. But now that I'm a little bit old, like in my late 20s, I guess
Yeah.
even people in their early 20s are pretty immature, I think.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah,
opinion.
but once you get there, then your brain might stop physically growing and all that kind of stuff. But then you got to put everything that you putting in there, jamming in there. Now you got to sort it out, right? So it
Yeah.
takes a couple of years to do all of that too, and depending on the environment. Yeah. So the emotional state of everybody is in your view pretty much
I can't really speak
in
for
a
everyone.
good space. Well, I mean, just generally, and not specific to it.
It's
How do you feel the vibes is on the streets and stuff in your circles?
See, this is hard to say because when I think about like all my friends and whatnot, and the conversation of like climate change, like that situation is inherently very like it's panic inducing, right? The idea of
Right.
being another Dorian. But I
Right.
don't know if a lot of people think about that. So I guess you could say some people are blissfully ignorant, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I guess good for them. People find comfort in really difficult times in like the church setting and whatnot. But
Right.
as far as like actually dealing with the situation on the ground, just getting more into the mental health, I'm really
Right.
not so sure. I'm really not so sure because I don't know if we have like those kinds of like faculties even after
Right. Yeah.
independence,
But
shall we say.
in our country, we seem to have one report or this one statement, and then people want to apply it to the whole thing. So I just was curious as to how the vibes was. Because that's when I was in school. That's the day used to do. One event happened, and all of y'all, you know that, or whatever. Cool.
Right.
So
Sorry.
So how did you growing up in the digital era shape your identity, generation's identity in particular, or yours specifically? Because I know my children, I think I said this to you before, I intentionally only gave them digital games and stuff to interact with because I know it was coming, being one of the designers of the space. But y'all pretty much grew up in it.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah. Um, no, sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt because I was actually.
No, go ahead. I was just asking you,
ask.
how that's a question on the screen that says,
Yeah,
how did it shape your identity, etc.
I would usually ask like, I'd probably ask you the same question because I'm curious. Like, how do you just like how? What's the real difference between me like as a younger person? I guess.
Well, we
From
had tops and skates with iron skates and box card and kite and stuff where you
Right.
had to go outside and play in the dirt and come home because you're too dirty and get beaten. And you used to eat all the fruit in the yard. Because you're hungry. There was no Wendy's and this and that and stuff to walk down the street to. Yeah, you had the little milk stands and stuff like that, but you needed money too, and so nobody had money. But the trees had the food that was free, and so forth. And you had friendship and play ball and sports and all that kind of stuff that kept us going. And then those who had preferred inside where they might have played card games and read more, like most girls wanted to read more and stuff like that. You had your tom girls and tomboys, etc.
Okay.
But now I see just like everybody want to play video games or something digitally, they oriented on the phones or what have you. But you all are very much more literate in that space than
Right.
people in my
That's,
group.
that's interesting, right?
Mhm.
That's that is peculiar. I think about that a lot, even though you'll see like numbers, like not very good looking statistics on like the literacy rate,
Mhm.
in countries like the Bahamas. But still everyone like has a smartphone and everyone knows how to send text. I mean, they won't always know how to spell every word.
Right.
Right, exactly. But um that's interesting. I was gonna agree. I like eating fruit off the tree as a Bahamian. That's as a Bahamian who's been to other places. I've been to Canada, the UK. But something I always miss about here in the Bahamas is being able to like, you drive around. Oh, there's this mango tree over there.
Right.
Oh, but there's a mangola like further up the road. I'm gonna get some of that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but in the digital era, yeah, the internet, especially during COVID, the internet offered a space that it felt was. I mean, you could say it's for everyone. I would say it's not really for everyone. I would say it's a little more dangerous than that. But the internet did offer like a place for young people to sort of turn to. I was using something called Discord a lot, which is very similar
Yeah.
to this.
Right.
The StreamYard. We're
Right.
both talking to each other on different video screens. You to my
Right.
left.
They particularly for gamers like to use Discord. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't use it to play games very much. I don't play games very much.
Okay.
Like that. But I did use it to like speak to people. And it seemed nice because they're from around the world. Everyone's dealing with this COVID thing at the same time.
Right.
It seems spectacular, but it's still disconnected in a way that's hard to describe. It's not the same as talking to like your neighbors or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So, there's that, and that's why we're kind of.
But you're a super confident person, so maybe
You
those
think
who
so?
are not too confident, man, you come across that way, right? That is you. From like day one, when we had conversations, you didn't shy away from what you had to say or what you were thinking about, and so forth. And there's a lot of people. Sometimes I gotta grab and pull and shake to get something out. Just hi, how you doing? Kind of thing. But when they're around their friends and
Oh yeah.
yeah, so and somehow
I love that about
that
children.
needs to change. Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome, man, awesome.
I
So
appreciate that. If I
Yeah.
come off as confident, I'm not. I wouldn't. This is fun. This is fun. This is a fun chat with, an older homie.
so is
The one from QC
the
also.
Bahamas where you would like it to be?
Where I would like it to be.
But for your ideal place to live, that the Bahamas can be the ideal not place total, but what you would like to be ideal for Bahamas.
This is an interesting question because last week, all throughout the week, UB was hosting a climate change conference.
Okay.
And on the first 2 days, I'll try to show it on the screen. They were talking about something called the SDG goals. This is a sticker I got.
Mm-hmm.
16, 17 different like goals.
Yeah, I think it's 17. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sustainable development goals. And I took a picture of it. I don't have it on me. But they took a picture of like a screen showing the stats of like where we are at in all different SDG goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had like the exact goals on me, but things like no poverty and whatnot, obviously as you'd expect, and not like it's, you know, on my screen it's like kind of here. You want to be here, but it's like here. It's not there yet.
Right. Yeah. It's way off. Yeah.
Weirdly, they said we're on our way to being a fully sustainable city and community. Like fully sustainable cities and communities is one of the goals. I think it's goal number 11. And it said that we were all the way there. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not so sure about that because it's like, considering there's still poverty, there's still like.
Yeah. Well, there will always be poverty, but I mean, I guess it's to the point. I mean, those goals some of those are really stretched. Like where they say no poverty, it's like no polio, right? It might happen or it might not happen, but it can happen. But is it likely to happen based on all the obstacles you got to overcome and the changes?
Yeah. Well, you got to think positive, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's an idealistic goal, I guess, which I like about that United Nations framework. There, it's supposed to be international like that, I guess. But where we are in the Bahamas, tisk. Maybe C minus. See me after.
C minus.
Yeah.
That ain't too bad. I mean, I've heard on a couple of radio shows today where you would think that we were in U classification, unclassified. Everything is wrong. But we're in the silly season now, so sometimes people start talking to say one thing versus another, and so forth.
I don't know.
So, folks, yeah, go ahead.
The more you talk about it, the more I want to drop it to a D or something like that. D.
Yeah, but the D is a passing grade too.
So, even, I guess.
But they all scores, right? And so we know that doesn't make the man, right? So
still,
hopefully we could do better as a whole, particularly if we get more people involved and more of the youth being heard. I think that would make our scores higher. And so, but folks, you're watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we have Dale and Miles here with us today. And like we say, we're diving into this. If you have any contributions that you want to make, drop it in the comments. Ask a question. Just give some praise as to where you're at and why you like life and climate change and whatever else going on that you feel would make our independent country even better. So, I mean, that's what we all looking to strive to do and so forth. So when we look at where we're going, right, or where we want to go, what that vision is that the youth in particular have. Because I know when I was a youth, I had plenty vision. Still have some of it. Some of it I figured it won't happen, but for the country whilst I'm alive. But a lot of it did happen because yes, we're talking digitally, and when I came home from school, university, we didn't have digital, right? And that was one of the main things that myself and a team of people at Patelco would have driven to establish. And across the country, it's so much so that almost 95% of the country has digital connectivity. Now, whether we're using the digital connectivity productively or for gain versus just consumption is another story. That's another step that we have to take. But where do you see us going, right? And if you could steer the policies today, what one major thing that you would believe would be already be underway?
I mean, I could tell you what I would be doing if I was steering policy today.
Yeah, man. That's
More
really what I'm
bicycle
talking about.
lanes. More
No
bicycle lanes,
bicycle lanes.
for sure.
They
It's the
really got to
start.
get this.
Better
I would,
mobility.
I would say, yeah, that for sure. I would say get some of the vehicle sizes down too, because you can have pedestrian, bicycle, and small vehicles like my fly swat, and then big trucks all in the same space. Right.
Right.
That's a no for engineering, but
Yeah, that's part of the bigger conversation of like road planning and road works, that kind of thing. Yeah, a lot of our roads are just one, what do you call it? One for all or something like that.
Yeah,
All the trucks, bicycles, and motorbikes, police cars, everything on the same road. But that's, I mean, if I imagine myself with any kind of like political power, I would push for better public transport or something.
transport.
Better way for like,
Mm-hmm.
you're a young person, you want to just get out the house and explore, but but you need a car to like get
Right.
around. You want to need a car to like just navigate. I mean, if you're old too, right? If you're
Yeah.
older,
And that's the second most expensive investment that people would make.
Yeah.
Most people would make a house and then a car. And when I came out of school, that was like number 3 on our list of friends who came up with a list that we were going to fix. Because we came up with a list of what we want to fix about the Bahamas. Public transportation was one. And
wow.
It's a, what's it, albatross?
Only a matter of time now, hopefully.
Yeah. No, well, actually, I believe that's what happens with certain things, that you run into this brick wall for the longest, and then all of a sudden, the wall gets moved, and then a whole flood of things goes through.
See, I don't think I don't know if a lot of younger people necessarily even agree with me on the public transport thing. Because a lot of people are just fine with like, oh, you got to get a car and it's expensive, but it's a good investment, right? It's this whole iron horse that you get to ride around, that's all. So
Yeah, if you want to
It's
look good and
expensive.
show off, but I mean, really and truly, a car is a sinking fun in terms of
it is
money,
but
right?
it is, but the environment is set up for that, so a lot of people are okay with
Yeah,
just
I got
having to invest in one.
and all those things
But there's
contribute to your climate change.
yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people kind of like people just get used to where they're at. After COVID, a lot of young people were just used to being, in the home all day with screens and whatnot. So you may think that's normal. You may think like you have a car and going around every night showing off. You think that's normal.
Yeah,
The point is like having better like mobility for everyone in general. It just makes it just kind of like chisels away at that fine line, if that makes sense.
right.
Easier for everyone to get around, easier for people to socialize. That would encourage more like public, like what would be called third spaces, places that people just hang out, socialize.
Mm-hmm.
Like usually it's a bar or maybe church here, but
Yeah.
it
But
could
one
be
of the
more
things
than
on transportation, though, is public transportation pretty much stop around 6:30, 7 o'clock max in most areas. And so then that makes it hard. And if you don't have a motorbike or somebody friend to jump in a car with, then you're stuck on the block. And then you know what happens when people idle. All kind of things happen that wouldn't normally happen if they weren't idle and doing what they really want to do. So forth, right? I remember when I was growing up, there used to be this big, I used to go on Saturdays, there used to be this big picnic of sorts on Goodman's Bay, where they would be selling beer and whatever else out there in the food, just like you have like a regatta kind of thing. But that used to be almost like every Saturday thing. And so people used to, who got a ride so we could get out there? If you have a ride, there's no bus on time you could depend on.
right.
So forth. So, that's a major item that you highlighted. that we need to fix in order to
Yeah.
move the country forward. And we can't go another 50 plus 2 years and not fix that. And I mean, this is only Nassau, but we're by the Family Islands, right? So they have long roads and people walk those roads. But when they come to Nassau, they don't really even walk in them up. Because I guess there's other elements go into that.
Yeah. The traffic for one thing.
Yeah, and they will knock you down too. Yeah.
I've been lucky so far, thankfully.
That's good. That's good.
I get around, I get around by bicycle
Mm-hmm.
primarily, and
Yeah.
thankfully being cautious enough. I think it could work. I think having more bike lanes would just make more people.
So besides transportation, what would be another one? Your major.
I can go on, really. In the reparations committee, we talk about the 10-point plan for reparations.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with it? It starts with
somewhat. Yeah. Not
with the
cognizant
full
of everything.
formal, like full formal apology from your colonizer or whatever. As step 10, I think number 1, or maybe it's number 10. I can't remember which end it is, but
Yeah.
the one that says wipe all the debt, like that would be one I think any young person like me would want to happen,
Yeah.
because we weren't there for like anything.
So why you have to pay for it? Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be an easy one. Like I don't know. I mean, not easy because obviously there's a whole question of like with the colonizers, like wipe the debt, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. But if this question is asking, like, what are we digital natives? Like, what is in our consciousness? What are we thinking about?
Right.
What are the things that we're worried about right now? And I don't think most young people, I don't think we like trust the systems.
Okay.
I think that's like the consensus. I think that's like a through line. We're picking up like the kind of apathy that you usually get, I think, with old age, like apathy towards like the systems that be or how things are.
Right.
I think like conversations about mental health, like they're happening more with younger people because we're understanding that like children in distress or children dealing with like traumatic situations, we're understanding how like how damaging that can be down the line.
Right.
I just don't know if everyone's really like on the same page. That's my thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think they've ever been on the same page for that.
So that's why it's hard to speak on behalf of like.
Yeah, I think until we get down the road where people still now is feeling, because I have making a couple of dollars, they assume, I just use dollars for that space, but it could be anything, right? Or because they are favorable or sitting okay in a certain environment, that they assume everybody else who look like them, whether it's age or gender or whatever, is experiencing the same thing. And I always say to people, like for instance, when people come to help in like even cleaning the house or contractors or whatever, people workers, and people get mad and say, well, why you don't do this, why you do that, blah, blah. And I'm saying, but they didn't have the same training as you, or brought up C as you, as we say in the Bahamas. So their perspective is different, and so forth. So why put that stress on them? Because when you put that stress on them, then they carrying that wherever they go, and they can put that on somebody else. Because it got to be released somehow.
Just be nice to everyone, basically.
Yeah, that's my attitude. Yeah, say hi, speak. If you want to speak to me, fine. If you don't want to speak to me, no skin off my back. I ain't get mad about that. I ain't gonna fuss you. I ain't gonna row you with why you didn't say good morning or rent space in my head to say that you rude, Miss Miles' child, rude kind of thing or whatever. No, none of that makes space.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But sometimes you get knocked the walls down. That's what I always say. You don't have no problem with me. I believe that if things are really wrong, that you should advocate to knock them down. in a
Yeah.
productive way, so not just to break
like
down
that.
barriers, but to build up something better as a result of it. So how can institutions, education, media, government adapt to embrace your generation potential rather than limit it?
Mm.
Because you said that they don't trust, or y'all don't trust the system. So let's assume that the system you're not trusting because you're being limited or not valued or not heard.
Mm.
I mean, I'm assuming those are things. Are they the things that it's causing the lack of trust?
I mean, there would we turn to, like we we go to the schools. We go to the schools to be educated,
Right.
but maybe schools could do better to, hear the youth. I suppose. I guess hear the students. If that makes sense. Like everybody, every one of these, like everybody, as in every institutional body, they have their responsibilities. Yeah, the education.
So that's a big one though, because Arlene Nash Ferguson was an educator for a number of years, and we know her as the Junkanoo Queen. Most people of today, but one of the things she said that she was taught and she always passed on is that education is about drawing out what is already in the person, not necessarily putting something in that person.
Interesting.
And if they're not listening to you, then how are you going to draw out what you might be missing? Right? That don't make sense. I mean, that's not logic. So maybe that's part of the challenge that we have with some of the students. Because today on the radio again, that people were talking about how, well, the system, they were complaining about the system don't work, education, and the host was saying, well, a lot of people succeed. So a lot of people don't. So it's okay, yeah. So it works for those people who succeed, but is it working for those who are not? Probably not.
Right.
And so you got to ask why. But you can't ask why without asking the people who are not succeeding.
Yeah, you nailed it. Nailed it. Okay, this is interesting to think about.
I mean, that's what we like to do, make you think.
Yeah. I was thinking, I think you would know about the group, Equality 242.
Yeah.
Heads that group. Yeah, they've been hosting some sessions on like governance, like what kind of like government policies would embrace what's the term? I don't know if it's disadvantaged groups, but maybe more so like
disenfranchised
groups. Like, the talks that Equality 242 has been hosting were, how do you address the needs of, like, say, the elderly, people from the family islands, people disabled and whatnot.
Right.
And the general consensus I think that we came to was that like the priorities, it seems, of a lot of institutions, especially since a lot of it is for like profit-based, like profit gain, isn't really to like totally benefit the disenfranchised groups, which is why we say pretty easily on the previous like calls, with Eden, with Paris, why we think that like youth are often ignored is because it just seems like that's one of the disenfranchised groups. Like the youth they just, within the setup that's going on now, within the setup of the current system, the current game, if you want to call it that, there's like they're not holding the power, like the power, the major political power, power to policy change. It still seems to belong to pretty old men.
Yeah, a lot of them in the upper 60s and 70s. Yep, a lot of them.
Yeah, and some women too, which is great, of course. The new commissioner and everything. It's good to see like that kind of thing happening, like more women being being in these positions of power and whatnot. But still, it's just not that. It doesn't seem like there's that many, and so we're kind of waiting. Like we as youth, we're kind of waiting for it to like, okay, when are we gonna start seeing like you know, other youth in I guess positions of politics, which is funny because I don't know if anyone really wants to like work in politics. Like, you don't really hear that often. Like, what do you
Yeah,
want to what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, firefighter or astronaut,
right.
politician. Like, I don't know. I don't know about
Yeah.
that one, but we want to see more of that.
Maybe their image that they portrayed over the years has pushed you all away from that.
Probably,
And
probably.
the view that national honors mostly politicians, etc., get them. So, you know,
Yeah.
if you're not interested in that, and then that's the only way to get national honors, then maybe people don't strive
Yeah.
to build nations.
I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm sure there are some good ones though.
Yeah, man.
I'll say that. I'm sure there's, because yeah, we gotta understand that. Find the allies where we can. There's probably definitely some some good ones.
Yeah. So we gotta catapult this journey now, because we 50+2. We went through majority rule, which was in '67, and that was supposed to give us equal the major milestone to start equal access to politics, economics, and social. So we got politics being equal in all intents and purposes, but
Kind of.
economic, we've been shortchanged big time, and social has fluctuated over the years in terms of equality. But that's going to always be a fluctuation. But, you know, we still want to balance it out somewhat. So how critical is mental justice in building the kind of nation you want to live in?
Mental justice. That's an interesting.
I know that one was can grab you.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Mental justice. Well, like, if we're so how do we define mental justice in terms
But
of
I was
this
hoping you would define it based on what your impression of what it means, considering the word justice and what justice is about, and what you were talking about earlier in mental health and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of a blend between the two.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would interpret this how I would answer this question. I guess I would assume mental justice means like what is owed, I guess, by those in the position of power, like the ruling generation and whatnot, or those who, you know, had the autonomy to make policy change in the nation and whatnot. You know, what is owed in mental health care,
right?
In terms of that. So that makes it an interesting question, because how long then that asks how long did a country go without providing that mental justice? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, because that is a serious question that two mental health people asked this week and last week. One this week and one last week. In terms of, one was fighting to say that we have ignored this for too long, that we think that anything to do with mental health is we only pay attention when we reach the stage where we call people crazy. But that don't mean that mental health and crazy is the same thing, right? Because you have mental wellness. Mental health is just like health of your body. You don't have to be disabled, but you could have an injury, sprained ankle or so. All those things at different degrees. But we seem to ignore anything to do with the mental side. And this gentleman was talking from social services. He was talking about where he used to be the chief at the SumTin Ta Tink, and they have a lot of men's program, but Bishop some name, I can't remember the name right now, in social services, but no men show up.
Really?
So they complain that there's no programs, but when they advertise the programs, and they say there's plenty of programs, but no men show up. So, all that to me is a part of the mental justice game, as you call it, a game, right? Life is a game.
I can see that. Definitely, one thing about growing up is that I learned that in the Bahamas, there is at least that attempt to provide these services, like social services. But yeah, a lot of people just don't know about it, which is part of the problem with education and whatnot, right? Like in sex education, they always tell you to like wear a condom or something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't tell you, like maybe people don't know where do you get one from or something like that. Like that's an issue with education and whatnot, right? That, and it's also convenient for us to be resilient, right? Like mental health is not as visible as like physical injuries and that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's this idea that like, you know, if you want to keep the work, if you want to stay going at work, you know, like keep your job at work and whatnot, you know, don't let your mental health hold you back, which is just, you know, it's just whack, because that is a factor. That's why most people, let's be honest, that's why most people don't like to work, really. It's because of maybe a mental health thing rather than physical injury or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just the stress.
Cool. So Marie Simon is saying, how will the reparations have a positive impact on the disenfranchised or marginalized? Who will distribute or monitor?
Okay, this is one of the classic questions that is thrown to the reparations
committee.
Reparations community in general.
Community.
Okay. The first part of the question is, I'm sorry, I mean, you could answer it. I assumed it was directed at me because I brought up reparations.
No, yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
The first part, I would say it benefits. It benefits all groups, really, because reparations is about. It's just I don't even know how else to say. It's about like redressing, like an ongoing issue. Like the ongoing issue that is happening is that, you know, these events were initiated by this group of people years ago that caused, you know, these problems in this other part of the world, or this other, you know, country, region, whatever. So it's like just leaving a Band-Aid off a wound, I guess. Like never putting a Band-Aid on a wound, like ever. You kind of like there's a lot of things, even down to like the public transport, that are likely, you know, have been affected by the colonial era in such a way that it calls for reparations, at least to like have that conversation about like what can happen moving forward. Like it's kind of like assessing the damage. You know, let's say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, off the top, there's a lack of capital, right, for a lot of people who are disenfranchised by the colonialism. We were taught certain things that really is not good. You mentioned transportation. Most of the reasons why we don't have a functional public transportational system is because all the jitney drivers and public transport drivers don't want to collaborate, right?
Right.
And they don't want to collaborate because the system of leadership that they've learned has been the colonial system of kingship. And so the king is the ruler. And so nobody wants to do something different because a lot of them don't know about different models of leadership, right? And then you have the church go to extreme, the opposite way, and talk about servant leadership. And then people start dissing the church. And so now they're stuck in no man's land, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And to the second part of this question on who will monitor the distribution of funds, because everyone wants to know that, right? Where's like who's handling the money, where's the money from, and whatnot. Unfortunately, I can't really give a definitive answer to that. Of course, it would be like some government body, but the point, my understanding is once the conversation is really initiated on reparations on like a national level,
right,
where everyone is actually talking about it, that's when everyone can start, you know, easing into the conversation of, okay, now who's going to handle the money for this movement. Currently CARICOM is kind of, I would say it's on the face of the reparations.
Sort of umbrella to it.
Yeah, CARICOM and their 10-point plan attached to CARICOM. I would say they're at the face of it. So then I would ask anyone to look up any of the bankers or anyone dealing in finances and CARICOM, I guess, because then they're on the front of the reparations movement. So if down the line they're somehow handling funds, I guess.
Yeah. But my observation is one of the challenges that there exists.
By the way.
Yeah, one of the challenges that exists is that in today's world, it seems like everybody is focused on how they will benefit as individuals and not as a country. And reparation and stuff like that generally don't benefit individuals directly.
I disagree with that.
I'm just saying, generally speaking, that's how it normally comes down through different governmental systems. Now, you might get access to it, or the funds, etc., through programs. Historically, it hasn't come directly to the individuals.
Not yet.
So you say you disagree with it?
In that it doesn't benefit people on an individual level because
No, that's what I meant. The direct injection or whatever. Let's say somebody gave $400 million or $4 billion.
Right.
That don't mean that they can take 400,000 people we have and divide that up and then give everybody a part. The equal portion.
Fair enough. But I would say it's like you cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
But at this current stage in time, when there's not really any reparations programs like that you can sign up to. But like I would say it's beneficial to people individually because it's like a historical conversation. What happened before? What is happening? Like what is happening now? Like what in this is why I say it overlaps with social science so well, like psychology and stuff like that. Because what is happening now that's affecting people's mental health, what's harming mental health, is things like the effects of a system like a colonial system that did set up society the way it is. It's just it shows up like colonial thinking shows up
everywhere.
Everywhere. So
because I see you driving down the street in your BMW on your fancy suit and your
not me.
Not you personally, but I mean people see things that they grew up to believe are icons of success, and so they want it. Not necessarily that they really want it, but they train themselves to want it because they see other people. They want other people to see them as being successful. So these are things that they figure they need to get in order to be seen as successful. And then the cycle of I don't want to call it. Let me call it cycle of despair continues. Let me say despair. Let me call it the bad word.
Yeah, cycle of consumption, maybe. Cycle of.
Well, what it does, it doesn't build up. That's the bottom line. It just tear people down, kind of thing. Cool.
Turn the light on, sorry.
Yeah. So, what role do digital tools and platforms play in shaping this $100 billion economy that I'm striving for the Bahamas to build?
I love this question. I love this recurring notion in your in the Something to Think About project with $100 billion economy. I can't think that big a number, honestly.
But I want you to start thinking that big, you and your whole generation, because we are 12 or 14 now, right? We have 50 something years, and we've only grown so far. But we've grown 6 times in leaps and bounds during that 100 to 50 years. So that's almost 1.1 or 1.2 every 10 years kind of thing. So, but $100 billion. So if you have 5 pillars, sun, sand, sea, digital, and people, right? And you remember the pillars? Yeah. And so if we have those pillars, then I don't see why we can't build it, right?
I mean, I just looked up like during this call the GDP of the Bahamas in just in 2023. It was 14.3 billion. So going from that to 100 billion, you know, is
Yeah.
is ambitious. But with the pillars, sun, sand, sea. What are the other pillars? Like the
Sun, sand, sea. So the sun would be all the renewable type um, endeavors and industries and stuff like that, where we know that we could generate without having to export negative stuff back into, whether it's carcinogens and what have you.
okay.
The sea would be what we can get from industries, etc., out of the marine. So whether it's the shark safari, or I mean, we have almost 100,000 square miles of water. There's so much industries that we could populate or employ the whole Bahamas just on the water.
So
Right.
someone
And
at
generating.
the sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I want to say someone at the conference last week at UB. I think it was at the conference. They mentioned that like the Bahamas has 2/3 of like the biodiversity in the Caribbean and like of like marine life. So 2/3. That was special to me.
Well, I know a lot of the marine life born here and then migrate upstream. Right. Trying to find out where this thing is.
Yeah, they are.
off the screen.
I remember now. The other pillars were people and digital.
Yeah.
We know sun, sand, and sea. But
And then we still have tourism, which we haven't even touched the surface of. Even though people seem to think we've touched the surface of tourism, we're not even there yet. Where is this thing?
I'm gonna be honest, Mr. Knowles. I don't think I can come up with like a business model or document with a projection of $100 billion. But
All right, we'll work
I
on that
can help
together.
out maybe with the people pillar because I'm a person.
Yeah.
So I can help vouch for that pillar in the new built environment. Digital, like I say, I'm not using, like, I don't use social media as much now, but I can say that like a balance.
Yeah, but you have smart cities, which will make life so much more efficient. You have you have all kinds of stuff that you could use digital for. It doesn't have to be you as an individual. It could be the whole process of functioning governance and business and what have you. Could be digital. You know, so it's like I say, there's so many things. I probably get 100 billion out of just digital by itself, right? But
You think so?
yeah, man. Listen, for what we did at Betelco over the 30 years that I was there, then the company went from, I don't know, maybe say around 70 million up to $360 million. I don't see why, if we could do it in that little space, why we can't do as a country. Multiply our GDP, etc. to be big.
From 14 billion
Not for, From 14 billion? Yeah.
I think in 2020, I just looked up that the GDP in 2023. Now this might be an AI answer, to be honest, but yeah, it was 14.3 billion in 2023.
Yeah, somewhere around there now. Yeah.
So okay, so the hike it's a 100 billion. I mean, this is where
100 billion is 20 each, right? Or some might have more and some might have less. But how much do you think the cannabis business is?
Oh, I don't know.
All right. So when you start looking at those, how much you think the bush medicine businesses if we were to really develop that? How much you think shark safari is? That's some people who went to school with me told me that this would have been about, I guess, about 10 years ago. They told me it was like a $2 billion industry and the Bahamas wasn't capitalizing or anything on that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can break the internet now with animals.
Sorry about that.
No, man.
Brought a guest along.
Yeah.
The guest
Yeah.
just appeared. Oh.
Gone again. Quick as that.
Well, that's one of the ways we're gonna break the industry right there.
Yeah.
Animals, great for the internet, of course. That falls under the digital pillar.
Yeah.
That's our pet cat.
So, what role though does digital tools and platforms play in the and who is being left behind? Are you all the people who know the tools the best being left behind, or is it somebody else?
We're not. I'd definitely say the people. This is why brain drain happens. Like what the people who are equipped to understand technology. I mean, look, I'm okay with technology, but my mother is awful with technology. A lot of people's parents are not as good with technology as they are, right? But in terms of like the standards of technology and whatnot, like what's available in our environment, it doesn't line up. Like we would be, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like younger people, you would be more likely to suggest like, this would be a good room to have hand sanitizer in or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Or whatnot. Or maybe not actually. I mean, maybe that's not the best example. But the point is that like, yeah, the digital, the digital group, the digital age groups that we are. We are aware of that. Now, I'm not a business person. I can't promise $100 billion. So
No.
you hire me
enough.
and then expect me to produce $100 billion, then I'll let you know early. But
no, but we're talking about as a country, right? Not individually.
I mean, yeah, like solar energy sounds great. For example, like if we're talking like ways to just stay, in the game for longer, like sustainable, sustainable technologies and whatnot. I mean, it's younger people, when they come across these ideas like solar energy and clean energy and whatnot, like they watch like say sci-fi movies or animes and whatnot about clean energy and solar energy. They'll doodle about it, they'll write about it, they come up with ideas about this kind of thing that they see in the media. There's this idea of like the solar punk future where everyone's using clean energy in the future. Everyone's rooftops or solar panels and whatnot.
Right.
That sounds cool. That sounds like something I would have drawn or something during math class at QC or something.
Yeah. So I mean, you were aligned with it, but you just maybe not pushed it.
Well, we're working on it. We we were working on it. Again, I don't know if everyone's on the same. I don't think everyone. Digital natives was the term. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's part of the thing with, right? Before we had majority rule, then not everybody was on board with a lot of things, but there was a series of events that led up to majority rule. So even though that might be the most popular milestone, you had a couple of riots, a general strike, and Pompeo was doing some stuff and whatever. All them different things add up to it. So you just gotta go systematically climbing the ladder until you get to what you need to get to. So if we gave you the spotlight and the resources, what national solutions would you launch today?
Apart from the bike lanes, if the digital natives had the spotlight and the resources, man, that would be great. But listen, I'm in my late 20s, so
Yeah. But you still hang with them. Yeah.
I do still hang with them, but I can say I'm of the thinking that we can't do it in a vacuum.
Right.
We can't have all the resources. We're not fully informed. You know more about the country than I do because
That's all right, but we will guide you. So the issue is that you
Okay.
have the ideas and the energy, and you know what your vision and stuff is for the country, and so then what should be happening is persons like myself should be able to guide you through the intricacies of the game, as you call it, the system, so you could get to be successful in achieving these ideas.
Okay, I'm ready.
I shouldn't be
when do we
holding you
start?
back. Right? Yeah.
When do we start? I'm ready.
Yeah, but I can navigate you through I don't have the resources, the financial resources that we have to find.
Ducks.
I mean, that I know people who have it, and
Okay.
you know, if you get the energy and everything, we could put things together and start moving, right? All right, so Miss Seymour had a couple other things she added here.
Okay.
She said, "I will represent." Did we answer this one already? Yeah.
That's my homie. I think we did. Yeah. This is
Okay,
there.
so it was this one. Yeah. Okay, so, but the digital globalization not added mental stress, especially amongst youth.
We've talked about
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. Seymour's
she said,
my home. Seymour's my homie.
Okay.
Was my homie right there. We talked about that a little bit.
And you're saddened by the lack of audience. I guess the people chatting in. To
No,
say,
I don't. No, that never bothers me. I like this is a fun conversation with
Yeah.
with an older homie.
Yeah. But one of the things what I find with the show though is the timing of it. There's a lot of people who watch the show after live, so they don't watch it during this window when it's live and they can ask questions.
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah. So forth.
That's fine by me. I don't think that reflects national apathy, because we wouldn't expect. In statistics
Yeah.
class, I learned this. If you want to have a sample that represents the whole population, it has to be at least 10% of the population. And it's unlikely for, the Bahamas has like 400,000. Nassau has like 400,000 people. 300,000.
The Bahamas and Nassau and only about 200 and some 300.
I think it's about 300,000 now.
Yeah.
So you'd need like 30,000 people listening for it to reflect the national population.
Yeah.
So
So finish this sentence. The Bahamas will evolve again, or advance, when we finally stop
fast food.
doing
Just
fast food.
kidding. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
listen, you don't know how true that is. Because I mean, just from a physical and a mental health, fast food is really
Right.
putting people in the hole.
Hospital. Finish.
The hospital,
Finish
but
that
in financial hole, because I mean, we still have, I would think, at least about 60% of people who don't have insurance, right? So
Right.
you haven't cook out and this and that to pay for whatever, and you know we don't go to the mental health doctor, so you won't even know what you have there. So, but I mean, that's money distracted from what people would want to do with their money, right? Whether it's take a small vacation or build a house or buy a car, or whatever. All of those things.
Or buy a bicycle.
Yeah, but
We'll have
you
bicycling.
said that wasn't it. So what would it be for you?
I mean, fast
you
food
don't.
probably falls under it somewhere.
Yeah.
The Bahamas will evolve again when we finally stop. I mean, you could just plug so many different things into this. I could name like 100 things. We stop capitalism for one thing. Climate change, like, God, I mean, Grand Bahama was destroyed by Dorian. It was just completely messed up. So like, if you could stop climate change and stop that, I mean, it's not gonna happen because it's a bit too late, possibly. But if you could stop that from happening, then that would give Grand Bahama a great opportunity to start, developing in the ways that it does. I'm sorry, Mr. Happy Knowles. I
Yeah,
can't
no
really
problem.
name
Man.
one thing there. There's so many things, but fast food is definitely one of them. Sure.
Yeah. So when we look at those things that you just mentioned, then how will that impact the vision that you all have for the Bahamas? Will that catapult you, or will that just allow you to continue to move smoothly?
if we
Will
get
that
rid of
speed you up?
if we get rid of fast food, then we'll be probably let's say theoretically we source all our food locally. Let's say food comes from locally.
Mm-hmm.
Comes from locally grown, well, I don't know, sugar
Yeah.
apples, whatnot, whatever, like whatever we grow locally.
Right.
That's healthier diets. You know, that's greater food autonomy.
Yep.
Maybe lower cost of living. So, the best thing about doing any of these the best thing about anything like improving public transport or say wiping the debt is that it gives people more time to do other things.
Yeah,
It gives
true.
people more time for like the arts or more time for podcasting or
Right.
anything like that. So
Productive stuff. Yeah.
yeah, evolution would be progress, you know, and reparations. Probably need some reparations for that.
Will it materialize my $100 billion economy? If you were to make everybody healthy right now, how let me ask you a question first.
Yes,
Based
sir.
on what you know today, how productive you think we are on average per person? If 100 billion our maximum production per day.
I'm still job hunting, so I know I could be more productive. So I can give you that. I don't know if I could promise any dollars in the billions.
No, but just
But-
from just in terms of,
There were,
do you feel that people are giving their all every day, or 70%, 60%, 50%, just on
okay.
average? Nothing scientific.
See, if I were making like 5,000 a week, and statistically, so in the Bahamas, in Nassau, there's like 300,000 people.
Mhm.
So all the other young men like me. So maybe I think there's more there's more reported females than men. So I guess men would be like maybe a little less than half
Mhm.
of like that 300,000. So if each of us were making like 5,000 a week, I still don't know if that's scratching close to like the billions in the economy. But that's not to say that like with better functioning, with better like faculties in food security,
Mhm.
and just again like the time that you save from any of the like
Yep.
policies that I would suggest, if I may say so, like better transportation for people, more third spaces, like more like have like okay, we have parks, we have beaches, but they're just not utilized like that. They're not the social spaces we seem to want them.
Is that because people are stressed and can't get to utilize
I
them,
think-
or is that because they think it's too hot and they don't want to be outside?
A combination of that. You need a car to get around and all that.
Right.
So like just beaches, but if you're not within like reasonable walking distance of it, you may not get to take advantage of it the way you want to.
Right.
And all these things, they give like more time. It's just more money. More time
Yeah.
is more money. You know, this is why this is also why I have a problem with fast food, because fast food tends not to not to pay very well. So there's also that.
Yeah.
A lot of like a long time for not very good pay. Like
Right.
for like just arguable if it's even like, you know, if it's even really covering you like that. You know, the hours that you put into like I don't want to put any names. I don't want to put any names.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Bamboo Shack's okay though. Their food,
Okay.
their food's busting. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, well, that's glad that you like like something because,
Yeah.
but and I guess that's semi-fast food. Well, it depends on where you go. So
Yeah.
I've asked you a lot of questions though. Is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't covered, we haven't covered, or that you would like to elaborate on?
Well, Mr. Happy Knowles.
Mhm.
I like these conversations, especially when thinking about like independence. By the way, I made this little flag during the call, just a wave.
Oh boy.
Woo. Yeah, happy independence coming up, Bahamas. But when thinking about that, I like to think about like how you describe it different from just slightly differently from how I would. So
That
it's just
normally
like
happens to
how
generational difference.
I mean how you feel it's progressed over the years. Um,
The Bahamas?
always curious about that. Yeah, like how
Uh,
things were versus now, how we
so
progressed with just like social
we
life.
have we have two eras, I say. One would be the Penland era, when there was, I would say, structured growth and development that followed a philosophy, a mindset, etc. And then we have post-Penland, when we then had disjointed growth. So one body would go this direction, another body go back another direction, and then flip, go backward and forward. And so the production as the equity, that's the word I'm looking for, that
Okay.
a Penland administration would have been able to build up from admin to admin every 5 years. You know, that momentum, the administrations since haven't been able to capitalize on those type of things, right? Because you have almost drastic policy differences between the two bodies. I mean, people always say the two bodies are the same, but I totally disagree with that. There are people in the parties that are the same, that have the same desires and goals and stuff like that, but their philosophies are different, right? You know, we always have somebody who will say, I want the contract so that I could get my 10% kind of thing. That's not going to change no matter what you do, whether it's a 5 mom and pop shop thing or it's a multi-billion-dollar company. That's just the nature of man. We find ways to do things that we shouldn't be doing. But I personally believe first advance, we have to get back onto some level of following a structured plan, right? And that plan can't just be developed by people who are already
I get,
are settled and achieved what they want to achieve, but they're only looking for more.
okay.
It's not gonna speak to people in your generation and so forth who might not have.
I mean, if I may ask another question, would you say there were like, so the Pinling period, you'd say was more constructive in how it went about the development plan, but would you say there were like any issues from that?
Oh, they had plenty of issues. It's not the issues will come, but what they did have was the resilience to stick to what was the ultimate plan or the ultimate goals that they want to achieve. And most of the institutional goals or institutional achievements in our country happen under the Penland administration. I think we only had like a couple since national health insurance and a couple other minor ones there. But Defense Force, national insurance, and all the rest of those happened under the Penland administration. So we had things like physical change, like roadworks and Nassau change, so forth and stuff like that. But that was also planned roadworks built on designs that Cecil Wallace designed when he was Minister of Works in the first Penland administration.
Okay.
With his thing. So, you know, we implementing some of those plans. Then you had BAMSI, which was pretty much the same thing. Happened early in the PLP, in the Penland administration, but it didn't materialize until the Christie administration, etc. Because it's a big country you have to build, and we have multiple countries. If you look at the Caribbean, with all the different countries, think of the Bahamas and relabel Exuma, Auckland's, Marijuana as different countries in the Caribbean, and that you have the same thing. Because the Bahamas is almost as big water-wise as the Caribbean,
Right.
and almost the same amount of people, land space as the Caribbean. But they have way more people, you know. And I did a what they call a United States Telecommunications something, USTTI, I think in the early 80s. That's a program supported by governments in this region, and particularly mainly the U.S. government. And doing that, the sustainable training course back in 87, I think it's 87 or 88, the professor pulled out a study when he realized I was from the Bahamas and asking so many questions in the classroom that showed that for the Bahamas to be sustainable, I mean, it was a sustainability report on different countries. But in there, I remember him, the only thing I really remember him saying is that Bahamas needed to have about 3 million people in our economy in order for us to be sustainable. And so when we look at that, and I translate that to today, the only businesses in the Bahamas that is really sustainable are those which are leveraging foreigners, the 9 or 10 million people that come here every year. The ones who don't, they really not sustainable. You just have some sort of collusion or some sort of monopoly or something that is keeping them up, but it's not true competition. And so it's things like that that we have to build through. And that's why I look for young people for ideas and energy. So, you know, people like me might have already walked the walk in building a country, and so you know what to expect and what to navigate when you see certain things. But the ideas really is within you guys. And I need you all to speak, you know, as loudly as you want to speak. And sometimes I mean throwing a rock. You know, they throw the mace out the window. They block.
I don't know.
Block
I don't
the
know if we
airport.
would do that. I don't know if we would
Fair
do that.
enough.
either.
I'm not saying that you must go do that, but I'm just saying sometimes you got to do some things that will agitate and cause attention.
Yeah, it seems like we haven't. Hopefully, we haven't exhausted all the I guess the more diplomatic methods and whatnot. And as our homie just said in the chat, yeah, this is why governance needs to be taught in school. At the level I mean at my age and where I'm at, I'm a little more hopeful. So even though we say we don't trust the systems as they are, I'm still a little more hopeful that like education and definitely more conversations between people like me and like your generation, just more conversations between everyone, really.
Right.
More of like everyone understanding where we're at. I mean, our homie Seymour mentioned earlier, like the thing of digital globalization. This kind of like, I guess what they meant was like artificially linking everyone over the internet. But I'm not really convinced we're really even still on the same page though, at all. Even in my generation, I don't think we're really on the same page, which is why I would want there to be like, I would really like there to be more like better education, because one thing I can tell you is I love the classroom setting, and kiddies, like younger ones and some my age, I guess, early 20s too, but like kids, they're amazing. They're, you know, they have like the creativity. They're amazing, you know, where they are at in life. It's just we need to that's why I say I think I'm hoping like better education will be like the answer before throwing like a brick or the base out the brick.
Yeah. But man, I always say education is academics, experience, and exposure, right? And so the more you get around people, let's say it this way: if we want to build, we need to be around people in the room who know more than yourself.
Sorry.
Right? So that don't mean that the person older know everything more than you. Because plenty of times you know more than them. Right? I won't even say a percentage that is only a small percentage, because sometimes I can tell you I've been in rooms where I know more than plenty people who were 40 years older than me in the subjects that we were discussing. That don't mean everything, but that's where the two-way conversations come in, right? Where we need to be able to handshake and build things together. When I came from school as a young engineer, the environment wasn't favorable to engineers because there wasn't many engineers in Patago. So people looked at you as, okay, you would supposed to be the privileged one, right? Or whatever you, right? You get a good position, more quicker than them and all this kind of stuff, and moving up the ladder quicker and what have you. So, you had your opposition with all kind of stuff like that, but you had to fight through it, and you have to find your niche and find a way to leverage the people who are out there who have the say, the clout, so that they can work on your behalf. Because you're not gonna do it all by yourself. If you're trying to do it all by yourself, you're fooling yourself. I'll tell you that now, right? Because even now,
no, we can't.
At my age, trying to say you can just get something done in our society, you need mentors and cheerleaders, right? Mentors will help you, guide you how to go through and be successful, and the cheerleaders is people who can open the doors for you. They can walk down the street and knock on this one door and that one door and say, hey, Dylan wants to do blah, 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 blah. I think he's credible. I want you to listen to what he had to say. Not necessarily telling people that they must do what he has to say, but you open the door and then it's up to you to make it work.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I hope anyone that does listen takes the bike lanes thing into heart.
Yeah, but I think that could happen in some areas. Some areas just too small. They need to reduce some of the traffic that they have on those roads already.
Maybe not literally bicycle lanes, but just that
what you mean.
The principle of like people can walk on the streets and it be safe. Wheelchair bound people. Make it safe for wheelchair bound.
Well, I'll tell you one that I want to see happen.
Oh boy.
Down there by Gambia Fish Fry or Kongstan or whatever you call that. That piece between that parking lot and Tropical Garden Hill, where you go to the hotel on top of that hill.
I don't think
I watch people walk on that curve. The bush, they trim it all the time, but it's not trimmed back. So you can't, when there's not even space to walk on the side. So people be darting in and out of the bush trying to avoid the cars coming around the curb. Because if you have two sets of cars coming around the curb at the same time, nobody wants to stop for the pedestrian. The only ones that navigate that well to me are the animals. Everybody else got to be scared half to death to walk around the curb. I would refuse to walk that way. I would stay where I'm going and go through the village and around before I even go on that curve. I don't know. Next time you drive out west, look at that curve. That is a very dangerous
sure will.
curve. Right?
I don't know if I want to see it. It sounds.
When you look at the road and how narrow it gets when you go around that curve, it's like a little hill on a curve just before you get to Gambia Village.
Okay.
Entrance, right? So you come down the hill traveling west and then you turn left into Gambia.
Yeah.
That's a scary sight, especially when them big trucks come, or them big dumpers that come speeding because they got to get uptown and get their next load to take out to wherever it is that they being hired to. Those things can't stop at 30, 40 miles an hour. They wipe everybody out if they have an accident. God forbid that they go off the edge, then they go 20, 30 feet down to the sea. I mean, that's kind of high.
I don't know if I wanted to see this. I don't know if it would be safe even for me to go to this place.
Yeah, man, when you drive past. My cousin knows they ride every Sunday and they pass that. They ride as a group.
One thing I
don't know if you ride as a racing rider or you ride as a
I'm thinking
casual rider.
I'm thinking on a bicycle. Like I would.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but they ride racing bikes. Yeah, so they ride for like 20 miles or 50 miles or whatever
Oh, okay.
every Sunday. Yeah. You need to join their club. Yeah, I'll send you his number. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, man. But I appreciate you taking the time to be with us and sharing your ideas, and hopefully people will see this and want to share more of their ideas. If they want to, they could even come on the show if they have something that lines with the new built environment. We'll talk about it and see how we could help them.
It was fun talking with. Is it possible that, like, let's say we brought Eden or even Paris back as like them?
I was supposed to invite them, and I didn't invite them in time. I thought I'd sent all the thing the same time because I wanted this to be a panel. And then they got busy, so I must apologize that they did give their apologies that they couldn't come at this time.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm saying, like, if you got them, could you also get 2 older people and then make it like a panel with the equal teams of
that was the plan. Right?
Yeah.
And like I said,
maybe,
life gets in the way and distracted me a little bit, and so I didn't get to put the plan together. But maybe we could do it later in the month.
Yeah, maybe Seymour will join. Maybe
Sure. Yeah.
will join it.
Yeah, we'll come up with maybe we could do just before Emancipation Day. They do the last week in July. I think that. Yeah, or right after Emancipation Day. One or two of them. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Come up with a good subject.
It's always fun. I like this, and I don't mind it if it's like however many viewers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
But like I said, I don't worry about the views because the viewership for me comes after the show. They're not doing the show, which
okay.
Unless I'm contemplating moving the time from 6:30 to a later time, so we can have more people who can possibly. People like to watch the news. They don't like to detour. I know I have a friend. He watches this and the news at the same time. But I don't know how many other people do that. Right?
I mean,
some people.
If you invited everyone to be on the panel at the same time, then maybe just invite 20 people, but all of them to talk answer the same questions.
Yeah.
Be very, very chaotic.
Yeah. No, but I only had like 3 or 4 questions for the panel because I figured by the time is one take the lead and then the others just chime in on that, then that would eat up all the time already.
Yeah.
So here we are already an hour and a half. It's just you one. So imagine if we had 3, right? But that's the idea. My independent show normally go 2 hours when I have a panel because I just can't get people to stop. Right? As much as I might hint, they want to go more. Even though when they start, they might say they can't talk for an hour or whatever. But after, especially when you get the vibe or 2 sets of perspective other than me asking questions, then people say, well, no, what about that? And they say, yeah, but and then you go. Next thing you know, there's 10 minutes on one question.
These are good questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. Try to ask questions that will be helpful, guiding you through.
Yeah, I still have a lot. I could still probably go on, especially that one with the how would you finish the sentence? I think.
Yeah.
How would the Bahamas would evolve if you got rid of blank? I could.
Right.
Go on.
Cool. All right. Till next time, we'll bring you back and bring back the ladies. The Bethel sisters, the Eden and Paris, and Mrs. Seymour, you're welcome. This show before we go basically was set up for young people and to help expose young people to things that they weren't being exposed to. And so even if you all are doing things that you want everybody else to be exposed to, then that's even more reason to come on the show.
Yeah. It's nice. I like this.
Good.
I like hearing how friends of mine also answer questions and that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right.
Party.
Well, happy Independence to you.
Yep. Oh, where did I put my flag?
Yeah. Cool. All right. We'll talk later.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Cool.
Happy Independence.
Yep.
Happy Independence Week and holiday.
Yeah. Cool. Folks, you've been watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we thank you for staying on with us. I'm sure you got some nuggets out of there. Be sure to share. And if you have, like I said, people who want to come on the show and talk about certain things, once it aligns with what the program is about, the new build environment, that $100 billion economy, build on those 5 pillars that we put on the screen. So, and mainly to help expose and develop the youth mind so that they could think beyond doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, and look more into maybe some entrepreneurship, craftsman, and whatever else that could make themselves feel valued and sustained. So till next time, next week, when we will have another great show. You enjoy. Happy Independence. See you on the 4th. Eat some stew fish and all those other Bahamian things. Listen to Bahamian music. Buy craft. So forth. Peace.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242.